Greetings, scholars. Welcome back. Just a quick contextualizing of our premise this week that 536 CE was the worst year ever. The documentary that I provided for you this week, that is titled 536, The Worst Year in History, is required viewing for this week, but here's a little bit of an overview and a couple of my emphases. I think it's important to note that we have historical written accounts from across Europe, Africa, and Asia from this time talking about catastrophic environmental disasters. So, blotting out the sun for the summer. China, we have yellow ash raining from the sky, killing crops. While I'm not a fatalist that the environment controls the outcome for everything that we do, it certainly has a direct impact. And we work with the resources we've got. And so when resources are scarce, certain potentials are cut off and certain grim realities are the thing that need to be dealt with. Oftentimes the governments at the time get destabilized because things are not working in the same way that they had set up to work when that power came to power. Also, sunshine is the best disinfectant isn't just a metaphor about truth and transparency. It's kind of literal. So you'll also see that not only with crop failures happening, we have more rampant spread of disease. And I've got a exciting first ever for you here in about a minute. Starting from east to west, China had a fairly sophisticated government structure by this point in history. And when you have 2 years of crop failure in a time before food storage techniques could be a primary source of nutrition for years on end, you see we had a famine kill estimates of maybe up to 80% of the population. Let that sink in for a moment. Europe and records from North Africa, we have the same kinds of crop failures, food shortages, famines, and certainly in less structured, more rural areas, like the accounts from Ireland, we have violence accounting for deaths of many of the people who managed not to starve to death. Because when these resources are scarce, history has borne out that we come together as a collective at the very beginning. And when it looks like it's going to be a longer haul than a very short gap fill, smaller groups tend to break away and compete for those resources to keep their group safe over the needs of larger groups. Skipping over what we know of the Roman Empire for a minute, let's just jump to the Americas. Changes in ocean temperature have recorded mass fish kills, leading to famines for coastal cultures. And there were very complex irrigation systems built up into the mountains that start to fail when we have major climate shifts, catastrophes. Finally, back to Justinian and the Roman Empire, we've moved the Roman Empire to the Eastern Roman Empire now, the Byzantine Empire, but they still thought they were the Roman Empire, alive and kicking. There were accounts of people dying 5,000 per day in the capital city of Constantinople at the time. Starvation, violence, weakened population, easily invaded. We focus on Justinian in this section to a deeper degree, but understanding that he ruled during this period. And he is most remembered for the plague named after him and the riot named after him. But he did other great things as well. Certainly, the Justinian plague that followed on a handful of years after 536 is a result of the particles in the atmosphere, meaning that we've got blocked out sunlight and perhaps more dead vegetation, animals, people, for germs, bacteria, and funguses to grow on. All of these basic pathology reasons that we may start to have new diseases spreading into the human population. There's a high potential that post 536 is when bubonic plague, the Black Plague, the Black Death, the thing that has ravaged mankind for 1,500 years now, may have jumped to the human population in the wake of 536. So far, archaeoscientifically, we have the first case of plague caused by Yersinia pestis, the bubonic plague, was the plague of Justinian. There are many plagues before this in the historical record. Those have so far been determined to be other diseases, and they were plagues because they wiped out large portions of the population, or they spread quickly, infectiously to large regions. The Justinian plague appears to be winning the gold medal first prize for first case of bubonic plague. You've got a list of things here. You can read them as historical events, but all of this is here as evidence of cultural, social, political stress brought on by environmental disaster. Post 536, you've got a loss of population, which means that the economy doesn't run the same way that it used to. Sometimes that provides opportunities, sometimes that provides scarcities. We talked about bearing out in the Irish Chronicles, but it is a global human phenomenon that trade alliances break apart, international alliances break apart, and then groups tend to splinter into smaller and smaller groups that compete for those leftover resources. The Vikings raid centuries later because in Scandinavia, the land was not supporting the population anymore. The sustainability of food and crops and simple space for the people put a strain on those resources, so they went out to find more resources, compete with other people for their resources, and take them. And it is no coincidence that the first khaganate of the Mongolian steppes was in 546. Genghis Khan, our most famous one, comes centuries later, but the first time that a group in Mongolia felt a scarcity of resources and decided to get together, form a militarized band, and ride in search of other resources. It's not a coincidence that it was 546. Religion tends to take major shifts and changes after a major catastrophe. So you have a huge spread of Christianity across Europe, up into Scotland, Africa. You also have in the Americas sort of a more extreme version of the religious rituals, moving into ramping up human sacrifice, certainly as the archaeological evidence bears out in many places, including Tikal. All of that being sort of absolutely dated between 540 and 600 CE. Empires that were doing well tend to falter or wane, whereas that creates vacuums of power for others to come in and grow and succeed. It's an opportunity for others. So it is certainly a flexion point for change.